Hi everybody, we're going to do part 2 of the watch strap video. So in part 1 we went through kind of the construction style of the strap, and then in part 2 we're going to go through colors and materials. So let's start with a very formal watch, the Audemars Piguet Ultra Thin. So this is an old vintage piece. You can find many of these on the market. Very thin in profile, and it matches best with these flat straps that have very little padding or interlining in it, like they're not shaped. Whereas like if you were to look at that together, that feels a little off because the thickness is kind of a poor match and the style of it is just not congruent with the formality of that watch. In terms of colors and materials, the flat straps I think look best with materials that have a little bit of texture to them. So obviously Gator is a prime candidate because you get the scales. Lizard is another really good option. So like that. Or in calf, like calf that has a grain to it, I think looks great as well. Okay, moving on. I've picked 2 date justs just because they're quite kind of common color combinations that you might find in a lot of different watches. So we've got a black 1601 and we've got a silver dial 1600 here as well. You know, for black dial watches, at the end of the day, I still think black on black looks the best. Like, I think that is great. You could also do dark brown like that, which I think is nice, but not as nice as the black. Okay. In terms of other colors that we could look at, on the silver dial, well, it's more like an opaline, like it's got a little bit of yellowness to it. The navy, I think, is great. I love navy with this sort of color, as well as dark brown and tan as well. If there was ever a kind of strong color that's kind of neutral, actually it'd be forest green. I think forest green, because it's so out there, it goes with everything, weirdly. I mean, it's eye-catching, of course, but it never feels like clashing with something else. I've shown you mostly Gator so far, and something I wanted to bring up with Gator is that the glossy Gator colors tend to be a little bit richer. Okay, that's one. You know, if I was to put that next to a matte Gator color, like, let's say like this. So that's the matte and that's the glossy over there. The matte Gator actually will develop a shine over use, and the glossy Gator will actually lose a bit of shine over use. So over time, they actually tend towards the same amount of shininess after a while. Okay. Other interesting options. So we've looked at some lizard. It's worth looking at ostrich, especially gray ostrich. I'm a big fan of gray ostrich. I think it's a very interesting material. And I also like tan ostrich a lot. But see, this is where like I'm not crazy about this. I find this very like almost too strong, you know, black dial and then a tan strap. I like that a lot though. And finally, these are really unusual, but I've done it before and I think it's a great look. Gray Stingray. You know, Stingray, after it's been made, it's so kind of crisp and hard that it reminds you a little bit of a bracelet. Like it feels almost jewelry-like as a result. Okay, last thing, let's look at gold cases. You know, gold being probably less commonly seen than it used to be. With gold, I like to use very warm straps. Things that pick up the gold, right? So like dark browns, tans. If I was to use calf, there you go. And see, like, I find that with gold, it's nicer to, if you have the option to pick something that's a little redder, it's better. I don't find this one, which is a little grayer, as good as that one, which is a little bit redder. Also, I just remembered, I forgot something. Taupe calf is really interesting. Maybe not on the gold case, but on white metals, I think taupe can actually look very, very good. And I think it's always something worth keeping in mind when you're looking for watch straps. So there you go. That was a little kind of introduction to colors that I would suggest to many of my customers, because I think they're good looking and easy colors to pair with clothing. I think that if you're going to pick a strap, in theory you should match it to your shoes, but in practice you don't have to. Like, especially if it's like shades of brown, as long as it's in the same color family, that's fine. And if you would wear a black strap with brown shoes, it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world by any means. This is at the end of the day a small accent piece on your wrist. A lot of times you won't even see it. So if you decide you like a bright yellow alligator strap, well, why not? Okay, there we go. Thanks for watching.